All right, who am I to second-guess the Federal Reserve? But I built a career on second-guessing institutions, so why not? But there is confusion as to why the Federal Reserve didn't raise interest rates, and now all of a sudden concerns with the market solo. Hey, you know, maybe a slowdown's coming, maybe worse, a recession's coming. Not only a bad news for savers, but maybe, Kayleigh McEnany says, for some politicians, particularly those in the party that control the White House, right, Kayleigh?
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. You know, this was a questionable decision for sure. And I go back to the February congressional hearing where Republicans brought up the point, the real point, that this Federal Reserve does look like a Federal Reserve that caves to political pressure. You look at Janet Yellen's calendar, you see she meets with Democrats far more than Republicans, the executive branch far more than Congress.
You and I know that's always a charge with the Federal Reserve.
It is, but
always
this was...
But any decision they make is skewed because it must be political.
When you get decisions as questionable as this one to keep the rate between 0 and 1/4%, that's when those political perceptions start.
There are plenty of economists who have no access to grind who say that it was perfectly justified.
And there are plenty who say just the opposite.
Well, I think you're a hater. I think you're a hater.
Always a hater.
Okay. All right, Ben Stein, what do you make of that?
Doesn't look like a hater.
Kidding a little bit here, but just to make the point that regardless of whether you think the Federal Reserve is working at anyone's behest, it obviously reflects a slowdown or concerns of a slowdown that would never help the incumbent party in the White House, right?
Well, I don't think that the Federal Reserve under Miss Yellen is any more politically attuned than any other Federal Reserve. I've known Federal Reserve chairmen literally going back to William McChesney Martin, who was a close friend of my father's, and they're always politically attuned. So that's nothing new. But what I think is going on that's hilarious is saying we're going to wait till after market turmoil ends. Well, market turmoil never ends. Market turmoil, it's now, whatever it is, market turmoil could begin again in 5 seconds. So that's a ridiculous bad joke on the part of the Federal Reserve.
But I think, Ben, she is an ideologue. She's a liberal ideologue, and she looks at wages not growing fast enough. And, you know, maybe you should tell her about all the people that need jobs in California. You should tell her about all the people that aren't filling jobs in California, please.
Fed policy.
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
With all due respect, if she thinks that Fed policy is going to raise wages, she really did not study economics very well.
Ben, she does, and she said it.
All right, well, guys, I want to stay on topic with this part, and Gary, help me with this. Regardless of whether you think that she has leanings or not, and she was appointed by a Democratic president, so I think it's safe to say she has left leanings. My concern and my issue here is, if you're Hillary Clinton, should you be concerned? In other words, are we looking at a slowdown? As Charlie's reported very well, that camp's biggest fear is a recession, that this long-in-the-tooth recovery stops.
Neil, let's talk markets. If the transports which have basically crashed, the semiconductors which have basically crashed are an indicator of the future of the economy, then yes, there's going to be a big slowdown, and I'm pretty darn sure that this Federal Reserve is seeing that. And by the way, they are not independent. They work at the behest of this administration. There is no doubt in my mind they should have been raising rates a long time ago, but they are watching markets and they are watching the economy, and they do not want it heading south in any way, shape, or form. Thus, you saw what you saw yesterday, which was just plain old nonsense. Well, I think they
follow markets a bit too much. I will say that. But this political thing, I think, with any administration, and I've covered them for years, and not as long as, you know, Ben, going back to the 1820s, but close. And I will say, I'm joking, but I will say that the rap against them recently, certainly in the post-Greenspan era, is that they obsess over these markets and trying to keep them happy. And Adam, I think that's a fool's game. I think it's a fool's game.
Excellent point. Excellent
point.
Well, whether
or
you
not
can never make the markets happy. You can't please them. They're sulking babies.
Adam, do you agree?
Adam, I beg your pardon.
Whether or not it's a fool's game, I think, Neil, to the extent that the economy is going to be an issue for Hillary Clinton, the die is cast here. I mean, she will be able to make the case that are you better off now than you were 8 years ago in the depths of the financial crisis?
That's not what her advisors say.
No matter what happens in the next 12 months. But where I'm going with this, and Neil, I'd like to know what you think. I don't think the economy will be the #1 thing for Hillary Clinton, assuming she's the nominee. I think it'll be a thing.
Two quick things. I asked the questions here. Secondly, You don't need much. You don't need much. I'm kidding, Adam. You don't need much for this thing to tip into negative territory, right?
How do you know?
We're barely growing, so you don't need much to tip it back.
How do you know that the economy won't be an issue? It's always an issue, one way or the other.
No.
And people
let him explain his ridiculous point.
Charlie, what I'm saying is it's always an issue. That's a given. Let's say we have a really bad year. That's not good. Is it better than 2002, 2007, 2008?
We have negative GDP growth a couple quarters that she has to run on. I mean, it's ridiculous to say.
All right, Gary, quick final word.
Just remember what happened 07, 08. The Republicans lost because the market got trashed and the economy went south. If that happens again, the administration that's in power loses going forward.
Janet Yellen, low energy. Low energy.
Great. He thinks this is Donald
Ben,
Trump.
is that good? Is that good?
He sounds like James Cagney. That is not Donald
Janet
Trump.
Yellen, low energy. Go back to Fox News.
All right.
Cavuto.
When we come back, you see what's going on in Europe with millions of these Syrian refugees. They're flooding these countries. The countries now are building wire fences. I mean, this great open Europe is now putting up barricades. The presidential candidate who's saying, we'll take a lot of them. About 7 times more than what the president wants to take. After this.